What's up, everybody, and welcome to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm Ryan Murphy.
I'm Josh Williams.
And I'm James Sheridan.
And today we are giving you our real-time review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, Zack Snyder's Justice League was directed by Zack Snyder, which, seems obvious. Stars Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck, Ezra Miller, Ray Fisher, Amy Adams, Diane Lane. Help me out here, guys.
Willem Dafoe,
Amber Heard, a lot of people. Billy Crudup, just a lot of people show up. A lot of people show up. Like David Thewlis was in this movie, who played Ares in Wonder Woman, and apparently he has a voice cameo in this. Like they just said, "Hey, Dave, come on in and just what did you shout as Ares for 5 seconds?" But he gets his names in the opening credits. So, but yes, Zack Snyder's Justice League, obviously a huge campaign, huge thing. It's all anyone's talking about on the internet for the past few days. And we all kind of went into this, I think, with different expectations. There's sort of a spectrum on this in terms of how much you hate Zack Snyder. It is interesting because Zack Snyder was a figure of derision for a long time. I mean, people didn't really like him. And he's always had his fans. Don't get me wrong. There's always been the Zack Snyder fans who love him, who love everything he does, who love both Man of Steel and BVS. But a lot of people didn't like those two movies. And that's why they brought in Joss Whedon in the first place. I mean, and ever since the Snyderverse,
there's more to why Joss Whedon came in, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, but ever since the Snyder Cut was announced, and especially in the past few weeks in the build-up, and especially with the personal stuff with Joss Whedon, certainly with the more behind the scenes stuff, Snyder is a visionary, Snyder's blah blah blah, and fuck Joss Whedon as. And I don't want to get into the personal stuff about Joss Whedon. That's
a different story.
That's a different story. But I mean, let's not just, people are just acting like he didn't give us 2 Avengers films and everything like that, but whatever. The question is this version really an improvement? And that's the first question I want to go on for us. And I guess we'll start off with Josh. What do you think? Is this an improvement over the Whedon cut?
Yeah, by leaps and bounds. I'm sorry to say, guys. I went in this thing actually with low expectations because even when I saw Batman vs Superman, I was a little underwhelmed. But then when me and Ryan, I remember we watched the Ultimate Cut together, and it wasn't much an improvement.
No, it wasn't. It was
actually worse. It wasn't. It was. I would say it wasn't an improvement. It was like a zero sum. Like there's no improvement. There's no better, no worse. But I'm also one of those people who think Man of Steel is one of the greatest comic book movies made.
Right. And if I could, Josh, sorry to interrupt you, but that's the spectrum we're on, because you liked Man of Steel but didn't care for BVS. I didn't care for either one, but I still give Zack Snyder a little bit of credit for being giving us a great Watchmen movie and everything. And James hates Zack Snyder, so we're on a little bit of a spectrum here. But go ahead, finish your thought.
So this is you got to take yourself out of what you feel about Zack Snyder. Maybe you just don't like his directing style or his filmmaking style. Me, it varies just depending upon. This one, I went to this movie, it was a vast improvement. Now, is it, some people are like, oh, it's a masterpiece. It's not. There's still some issues. There's some structural issues that certain scenes could have been moved somewhere else in the film. There's some editing issues here and there. And I actually feel like I'm going to give this movie probably going to give it 7.5 out of 10, maybe an 8. It just depends, somewhere in the middle there. So 7.8. So Ryan can make the proper graphic, behind the scenes things. 7.8 out of 10. It still has issues. It is long, but I found myself engaged throughout the whole movie. Now, like I said, there's still certain things I wish he would have changed personally as an aesthetic, but I found myself shockingly enjoying the hell out of this, quite a bit. So we'll get into more details of why I think that. We'll kind of go round robin. I feel like, and it's kind of funny. I didn't realize until after I watched this, because I watched Justice League 2017 before that, and I did not believe how much, on a structural standpoint, on a storytelling, on a character motivation, there's a lot of stuff that Whedon did change on a lot of different levels, that more than what we realized.
Well, I think it helps to watch the Whedon cut immediately after the Snyder cut, because then you can actually see the timeline of of how all old, like you can see what he changed. But
Right.
that's what I did. But James,
Yeah.
what did you think overall of the film? And because you said I have thoughts as soon as you got done, so go ahead, James.
The problem is I've got thoughts, but I'm still trying to sort through them. So I'm kind of still reacting in a sort of visceral, emotional way to it. I thought this was not an improvement over the original movie at all. I don't think that the original was good. I don't think that this was better or worse. I think it's just the same movie, but longer. I do think that they put a little more time into developing characters and certain storylines, but it ends up being the same result. The biggest problem I have with this and the original is that I don't give a shit about any of the people involved. I have no investment in any of the heroes, which is a shame because several of them are like top tier favorite heroes of mine. And it's not just like a Snyder interpretation thing. It's like a fundamental problem with just the entire approach to heroes in general, into the world that they're developing. I feel like both this and the original and every other movie in the Zack Snyder side of the DCEU pays a lot of lip service to ideas, but doesn't pay them off. They spend a lot of time stating that, Superman is a beacon of hope, but I don't feel at any point we've ever actually seen him be that outside of maybe rescuing kids on a bus. That the world at large would see and kind of take in as, yes, this man is the symbol of hope, and there is a void left by him. I don't feel like that's ever really established, and the entire movie is sort of leaning on that premise from start to tail. Like the entire opening is based on the idea of like Superman dies and his yell is heard throughout the entire world, and the sort of like repercussions of that with the mother boxes waking up, and then Steppenwolf coming down, and Darkseid looming over, and like just from go I'm not engaged in the story because I don't buy it, and I don't feel like they've ever earned the things that they're claiming. I don't really have any interest in any of the characters as they're depicted. I don't have any interest in the story as it's depicted, and I don't see enough significant change between the Whedon cut and this cut. Like I see the changes, but I don't feel like they're better or worse. I feel like they end up telling the same sort of point, just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like, and I realize I'm in the minority of this because I'm seeing a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is a great improvement. This is a masterpiece. This is what we should have gotten in the first place." And it's like,
if anybody watches this, Twitter's gonna like come down on you, man. Like,
I'm sure they will, but it's my opinion, and I don't see what everyone else is seeing. So
yeah.
And I've watched both versions like 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks, and it's like I can't. I don't know. I'm like,
mm-hmm.
I got to give this a solid 3 out of 10.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm gonna probably give it the same as Josh. I'm gonna probably give it a 7.5. I think I'm gonna say this. I think it's probably an improvement. Which again, we're on a little bit of a spectrum about Joss Whedon.
I'm gonna tell sorry, real quick. I'm shocked right now, honestly.
Well, yes, because I mentioned we're on a spectrum about Zack Snyder. We're also on a spectrum about Joss Whedon because James doesn't hate him but couldn't give a shit about him. Is pretty apathetic about Joss Whedon.
That's not true. That's not entirely true. I loved Firefly. I loved the first Avengers movie, and I loved aspects of Buffy and Angel.
Okay.
But I'm like.
But historically in our conversations, you've been sort of apathetic about him, whereas Josh is sort of a little bit in the middle. And I am the guy whose life was changed by Joss Whedon. Like watching Buffy in the 8th grade, right when I was kind of coming into that more mature area of my life where I was starting to think about things in fiction more seriously. And watching Buffy and getting into Firefly and all that sort of stuff changed my life and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I've been completely a Whedonite since then. And, the stuff about him lately and behind the scenes stuff has been very troubling to hear. But that aside, we saw Justice League back in, Josh and I reviewed it back in 2017, and we kind of agreed it was pretty, yeah. It was kind of fun, but it was not very, it was no Avengers. And and this is, I would say, just a little bit more engaging. And first of all, I want to start with what's bad about it, and what's worse about it, I should say. And what's worse about it is the time. It's so fucking long, and it drags like the proverbial motherfucker in the beginning. When it takes us an hour and a half to get through, like, just kind of collecting the heroes, or 2 hours even. I mean, it's crazy. It's like we've spent the entire length of a whole real movie doing this. It's interesting to then watch the Whedon cut immediately after. This is why I recommend doing it this way: is just watch the Whedon cut immediately after, because the Whedon cut is kind of working from the Snyder cut and seeing what he did with it. The editing is a lot tighter. Just watch go back and watch the Wonder Woman rescue scene where she rescues from the bank robbery, and watch that scene in both versions. Watch what Snyder did and then watch what Whedon did, and he just cuts it a lot quicker, and it's just trimming a lot of the fat. Whereas Snyder was just sort of, I mean, first of all, we have to get one thing straight. And I think this is really very, very important to recognize. This Zack Snyder's Justice League was never going to be the theatrical cut. Even if Joss Whedon never got involved, it still would have had to have been cut down. And they still would have had to have been brought down to at least 2.5 hours. So this might have been released then as a director's cut. But this 4 hours was never going to be what we got in 2017. So there would have had to have been some serious cuts. And people complaining about what Joss Whedon cut, it's like, well, it was always going to get cut. It's 4 hours long, folks. So yeah, the time I felt it could have gone a lot quicker in the beginning. This even as it is, I was like, Zach, come on, you can make this 3.5 hours. You don't have to have an Icelandic woman singing after Aquaman for 5 minutes. And stuff like that. I mean,
and don't get me started on those prologues.
So the time wasn't good, but there's a lot of, and I think a lot what you said, a lot of what James you said was a lot of what Joss Whedon changed is the same but different. And I think a lot of the scenes that he reshot are just trying to get exposition done quicker, exposition done in one scene instead of in 2 scenes. I think that was what it was done in the name of, because some of them is just like the same when they're talking about, resurrecting Superman. It's like they're talking about
character motivations are vastly different. Like in the original, Wonder Woman did not want to do this. She thought it was a bad idea. Whereas everyone in this version, they were all kind of on the same level. I read an article about that scene and the motivations of all the characters in this version versus the other. The other version, they have more like mentality of humanity and what was right and what was wrong. This one, it's kind of like gods playing as gods. And that's kind of what Zack Snyder wanted it. So it wasn't necessarily a thought of morality. It was just, how can we do this and do it safely and whatnot. So because, the only voice who had objections was Aquaman in this version.
Mm-hmm.
And even he was just like, all right, let's just do it. But the motive. I would argue that the motivations in the 2 different versions are different quite a bit.
Well,
but it still ends up with Superman.
It still does.
The experiment they go through is exactly the same. The scene is almost exactly the same. The approach to it is different. The coloring of it is different, but it still ends up with Superman coming back and not remembering them, and they get into a huge fight.
The only thing that I thought was actually
still the
better.
End result.
The only thing I thought was better in the Snyder Cut is when I watched the theatrical version, I was like, they're going to do this and they're going to bring on Steppenwolf. Like, doing this will activate the mother box and he will know exactly where it is and he will get it. Like, this is stupid. And in the Snyder Cut, they at least acknowledge that. They talk about that. They're like, yeah, that's going to happen, but it's worth it to get Superman back. And I was like, well, thank you for acknowledging that, because in the theatrical cut, it just seems like they're kind of forgetting that. And it's just like, they're going to get screwed. Right. But no, like, yeah, we could talk we could probably just do a whole running commentary on the movie about all the different stuff. But so I talked about the length is the biggest detracting factor of this, but the biggest way that it is an improvement over the Whedon cut, and I'll never understand why Whedon did this, is Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
Visually.
Oh, man.
Forget about his motivation. Oh yeah, and this he talks about dark side, blah blah. No. Just visually, he looks 10 times cooler. I mean, he just looks badass, and it's and even when we watched the theatrical cut, that was the biggest drawback. In our review and a million other reviews, was that the villain was uninteresting. The villain was anemic. It was like it made people complain about Marvel villains, and this made all the Marvel villains look like Norman Bates. And this version, it's amazing just how much just making him look cooler that alone did, because he looked stupid in the. I remember thinking like, this is just not an intimidating looking villain. I'm not buying any of this. And in terms of his motivation, his
lot better.
Where he comes from in terms of Darkseid, I feel people are saying it's so much better because he's, I betrayed Darkseid, now I'm trying to get back in his good graces. They could have elaborated on that a little bit better. Just saying, in some vague instance in the past, I may have betrayed Darkseid, and I thought that was unelaborated on. But I want to address. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick before you address that, I just love that he didn't refer to the mother boxes as mother is calling. That was just so stupid. I don't know. I thought it was much better.
It's the same voice actor, Kieran Hines.
Yeah.
But he sounds a lot different. He sounds better too. I don't know what the hell Whedon was thinking, no, let's cut that out. But I want to address real quick, because I understand Whedon better than well, you guys. I'm more of a. I have my degree in Whedon. I'm here. I'm the person here with his degree in Whedon. I'm a Whedon nut, and I know how he works to a certain extent. And I want to address why I know he cut out all the Darkseid stuff, and why he cut out almost any reference to Darkseid and made Steppenwolf, even Wonder Woman's stories about Steppenwolf. Whedon really, really believes, when it comes to movies at least, not necessarily episodic television where he spent the majority of his career, but when he makes a movie, he really believes in telling a completely contained story, and as much an extent as possible. He understands, and he understood with the Avengers that he was part of a franchise, but even in those movies, he really wanted to keep it as self-contained as possible. He's actually one of the few people who has ever dared to criticize The Empire Strikes Back. Because he never really cared. I wouldn't say he never cared for The Empire Strikes Back, but he never really cared for being left hanging at the end. He said his idea is always finish the story. And so I don't think he wanted Darkseid as this big force that's just like, yeah, I'm still here and I'm coming after you next. And this story hasn't even hardly begun yet. So that's why I know, just knowing him as I do, that's why I know he did that. But I still think it's better to have Darkseid in there because it's Darkseid. And we finally got a live action Darkseid, which we'd never had before, unless you count the bullshit on Smallville. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I agree. And I love I kind of like the idea that Darkseid was defeated. It kind of gives, I don't know, it kind of gives a good story behind him. Like he really wants to take this Earth. But I just love that the motivations for him going there, because at first he's like, because we've conquered so many Earths, just conquer this one, it's fine, because the heroes are gone, there's no Kryptonians, there's no lanterns, so you should be easy for you, right? But then he realized there's this thing called the anti-life
equation.
Yeah, anti-life equation, and now he's like, okay, now I want this. And like I kind of liked that journey, not journey, but like the character development of Darkseid. And you got to think like this is when he was much younger, so now that he's older, he's probably way more powerful than he was before. Has probably a much bigger legion. So I liked the fact that they brought Darkseid in, and the fact that he was part of that, in the beginning, rather than Steppenwolf. But it doesn't change the fact Steppenwolf to me was a great villain. Now he was like the scene where he takes the mother box from Themyscira was way, even though it was longer, was way better. Like you felt he was more visceral in this. Like you felt like he was an actual threat.
Well, that's also a rating issue because they contractually, a lot of these movies have to meet a PG rating in order to, because unfortunately there is a money scale when it comes to the ratings and how much money a movie makes in theaters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Deadpool being an exception, but studios are very reticent to put in a movie that is anything above the PG-13, and even a PG-13 they prefer to like cut it back to a PG. So very clearly, I think this is a studio decision to pare down the visceral violence of that scene in order to get a PG rating, so that they can maximize the amount of money that they put into this huge blockbuster. Whereas on HBOMax, it doesn't matter what the rating. They're not going to be making the money that they would be theatrically on it. They're going to be making it on the subscription costs, which are being paid anyways. So it's not like having a rated R version of this is going to make a difference to the box office, where it will on the theatrical release. So they can go full bore and just let this guy go whole hog on it.
Yeah, it was interesting to see certain scenes that I don't know why they have all this violence, why they shot all this violence when they were never going to be allowed to release it theatrically. Like you see people getting shot in the head and blood spurt all over the place. Like,
but there are versions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are versions of PG-13 where you can push that boundary. You really can.
To a degree.
To a degree, but you can, and I feel like, if what happened with Zack Snyder's family, when his daughter committed suicide, which is, to me, from what I've gathered, that's the main reason he left. Like that, he was. Yeah. If that wouldn't have happened, he would have finished his film. Like, of course, he would have had to cut it.
They were already pulling it away from him a little bit and starting to make changes to it. And then the daughter thing happened, and he just kind of backed away entirely and said, I have to focus on family right now. We've had a tragedy. This is far more important than any movie. And he's 200% right. I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm not going to criticize him as a human being grieving over his daughter's death. And I think anyone who takes shots at him for that is an absolute monster of a person.
Oh yeah. And I agree. Like the runtime's too long. I felt like if this movie was 3 hours, a solid 3 hours, this movie probably would have been much better because you trimmed off a lot of the fat. Because from what I read in an interview, he said this film, he wanted to make it completely all the scenes he said this was a cathartic moment for him. So because it was for his daughter, kind of thing. So he was going to make it long no matter what. Yeah, but if we're going to be honest with ourselves, if he would have cut that down to 3 hours, I felt like this movie could have been an easy, for me personally, a 9 out of 10. Because like that to me is the part that dragged it down for me. Was there's moments like the moment where the woman's singing like 5 minutes to Aquaman. I'm like, you don't have to have that. I know I get what he's going for, but you didn't have to have that. Yeah. Or like, and for me, the other thing is in the beginning, I noticed at first I didn't notice it, but then I started noticing it in the beginning, and thank God it stopped. There were so many slow-mos. Like it was almost the point I'm like, okay, I'm starting to notice it, and it's starting to take me out of the film. You cut down the slow-mos, which you did. I was glad he did.
You knew you were watching a Zack Snyder film, right?
Yeah, right. But I mean, he does do the slow-mos, but not as like it was just like every scene was a slow-mo. I was like, come on, man. But I mean, I did love the ending a lot better. The
end battle scene was a lot more coherent and a lot more.
And we have to talk about the family. Yeah.
I do hate the gimmick of using Barry to do the time travel thing, especially because they're establishing it as something he has to use later. Mm-hmm. And because DC has a tendency to over abuse certain characters' powers, especially when it comes to time travel. Yep. I'm sure we will at some point mention the Donner cut of Superman and the spinning around the world thing. Like part of what loses me with this movie is how godlike these characters are. And I realize that like that's the thing with DC is that these characters are gods, but they're also human. And I feel like so much of that was missing from this. That was something I really loved about Whedon's cut, was that we had that opening scene, as goofy and stupid as it was, and as silly as it was to trying to establish the plot quicker of the mother boxes, the opening scene with Batman interrogating the guy to get the demons to come out based on his fear. I miss the aspect of Batman being a detective and being a crime fighter.
I do miss that. I did like that scene, I'll admit. I wish that was in here.
And there's a lot of that stuff that's why I did like the Snyder version of the Wonder Woman scene a little bit more, was because it that entire scene was great in either version, in my opinion. But I like the version in the Snyder cut a little bit more, just because there was that aspect of humanity where she's interacting with the girls afterwards. Mm-hmm. And because she is such an icon for women and women who love superheroes and comic books, like I don't know a woman who doesn't love Wonder Woman to some degree, whether they like comic books or not, because I mean, she's a feminist icon. She was created by a feminist to be feminist. And just that scene to me was one of the few shining moments, and one of the places where the Snyder Cut does do a better job. But again, there's little things here and I don't know. So much of the humanity otherwise is just missing, and it drives me crazy, and it just.
Wait, yeah.
I mean, I get that. And some moments could have been like, I feel like there could be like a cool ultimate cut where because there were some scenes from the Whedon cut, like that scene was
Yeah.
really great. I
And
also
another one
loved go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate the Whedon version of Barry too, because he seems slightly. Hang on, there's a reason for. He seems slightly autistic to me, or slightly neurodivergent, and I don't feel like we have enough of those characters in superhero fiction. And I think if there was any character to be ADHD, it would be Barry Allen the Flash.
Okay,
And I think that those little moments of him being sort of neurotic and socially awkward and whatnot, I miss those, and I didn't care for Whedon's or for Snyder's take because I don't feel like there was any other character to him.
Well,
to me,
I want to talk about that. Like, I didn't see that I saw him as the same character. Certainly, he makes a little bit more of an, I guess, allusion to being on the spectrum when he talks about how he doesn't relate to people and stuff like that in the Whedon cut, which is really interesting. I also want to talk a little bit about those insert shots that Whedon was able to actually get in there, even though the scene had already been shot. He actually managed to go back on a similar set and actually put scenes in, like the brunch thing, which was kind of a stupid thing.
Yeah,
that line was stupid. But what I'm talking about is the whole fight scene in the sewer there, where Barry's a little hesitant to get involved because this is a young version of Barry who isn't an established hero kind of thing. He even says himself, "I mostly just push people out of the way. I don't fight people." And Batman has this great moment with him just saying, "Just save one. And you'll figure it out. Yeah. You'll get it." And I think that's, to me, that establishes Batman as a mentor a lot better. And that establishes Barry as this young, sort of uncertain character better. Whereas, I don't know, like I go back and forth about which versions of which scenes are better. And it ends up being a zero-sum game for me.
Yeah, and so for me, that based on, I kind of had a problem with that in the Whedon cut. Only reason being is if he was like this new young hero who didn't know much, he shouldn't know a lot about his own abilities, or that. Not only that, like I'm kind of using the analogy of the suit of Spider-Man. When Spider-Man is a new young hero, he has this like suit that's just like pajamas, whereas this Flash, he has like this high tech. Really
I don't care much for the
suit
in this version.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But to me, like him wearing that kind of suit means he's done a while. Like, because you always have like any superhero shows that we see, they have that trial and error of what outfits they should be wearing or what their super suit should be. To me, him wearing that high tech suit means he's been doing this for a little while. So his motivation for me in the Snyder cut was, I don't know, not motivation, but his like knowing his abilities, knowing what he can do and not do. So that scene was cool in Whedon's cut. It was cool, but I kind of liked, like, he kind of knew what he was already doing, kind of thing, and it kind of played the role along the way.
There's some nice moments in there. The save one. I was gonna say I don't really love any. Again, I know it's shocking. I never imagined I'd like Zack Snyder's version of anything better than Joss Whedon's. And I just want, I wish people would just get off the Whedon hate thing online, just because.
Yeah, he gave us Avengers.
The personal stuff, fine. If you want to call him a jerk because he's a jerk, and he was a jerk to Ray Fisher, and he was a jerk to, that's fine. I don't care. But creatively, like people saying like, "Oh yeah, fuck Joss Whedon, his work is," no, come on, this guy created Firefly. This guy, I mean, come on. So yeah, I'd never thought that I would like the Zack Snyder version of anything better than the Joss Whedon version. I was gonna say I don't really love anything that Whedon added. Again, I think a lot of the changes were made to tell the story quicker. I don't. The save one moment is probably the best thing he added.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing he added was probably the family that the Justice League, the Russian family.
That was stupid, and I'm glad that was
so much better to just say, you know what, there's no one here. We have no one to save. We're just gonna kick ass in an empty village. And
especially because they're establishing that this is, like, I don't think they ever actually say it, but like it's very clearly supposed to be Chernobyl.
Yeah,
it's very clearly supposed to be Pripyat, which no one's supposed to be there. It's a dead zone. Like, people go in there to visit, but you can only be there for like a few hours and you have to leave because it's still radioactive.
Yeah.
So like people living there in a zone that's supposed to be deadly to me, like even if they're not saying it's Pripyat, it like It
It's
doesn't
like
make sense to me, and it's goofy and it's stupid,
Right.
and like the entire purpose of them being there is that it's a dead zone, that people aren't going there, that people won't see this, that there isn't, cell phone range or satellites looking at this, because why would anyone look there? It's a dead zone.
But it's
People
also
go there to die.
just a better action sequence. I thought I haven't had the chance to really sit down and watch it all back to back. But there's scenes of Batman, shooting a laser gun and stuff that wasn't in
Batman
the
was
theatrical
much more
cut.
badass in this
And
version. Yeah.
it just was. There just seemed better from my perspective. The
And
full
even in,
final
like,
battle sequence.
On an aesthetic standpoint, it was like, because like in Joss Whedon's version, it was like red, and like
the
it
whole
was
red
like,
tint was really
yeah,
weird.
red tint was kind of weird, but this one, it wasn't. Like, it's clear, like, you take down the barrier, the red's gone, so don't you worry about it.
Well, Whedon likes a more colorful palette, whereas
Well, yeah, and
Snyder is
that's
very much a very muted palette.
and that's one to get into next. One of my still dislikes is because he's always has very, desaturated colors, much more darker, contrasting. Not much brightness to him. Like, for me, all he had to do in this whole film, and I would have loved it. I probably would have gave it even an 8 out of 10 for it. Was the fact, like, all he had to do was raise the exposure on the whole film, give it a little more temperature, warm it up a little bit more, and I think that should be it. Like, just I remember there's and again, another article I read that comparing certain scenes and how it looks. And I will admit, like, the Whedon's cut does look like on a color palette, it's a lot better. Now, I think he still could have had not as still had a little more desaturated. I'm still fine with that, but just warm it up a little bit with the whole film, in the exposure a little bit would have made it, to me, just a lot better.
At least the Smallville scenes.
Yeah.
Smallville should not look washed out. Smallville should always look hopeful.
And that's right. And I loved that. Even it's a small detail. I loved that in the Whedon's version, he only hugs his mom at the end, but in Zack Snyder's, he's hugging both Lois and his mom to finish out the scene. Just little details like that is really cool. And one of the things, now here's the thing. One of the things I didn't like, and I feel like you could have maybe moved this scene somewhere in the middle, maybe, and you could have. So here, let me explain. So to me, this movie kind of had a Return of the King vibe. What I mean, like, the epilogue was long.
Yeah, they put scenes that were clearly intended. They took a scene that was clearly intended to be a post-credit scene.
Yeah,
and they put it at the end, and then they added the whole and that's the thing, is that Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League that existed in 2017 ends about 10 minutes before the movie ends. The Deathstroke scene was supposed to be a post-credit scene, and then the entire thing of
you talking about the Deathstroke with Luthor, or the Deathstroke
with Luthor was supposed to be a post-credit scene from the beginning, but also then everything after that, the nightmare, the post-apocalyptic scene, and even Batman waking up and meeting John Jones afterwards was all shot this year. That's one thing I don't really care for, is just because this is supposed to be a Snyder cut. And
I love the John Jones thing.
But it confuses me because it doesn't have any bearing on the plot. It's clearly there to set up sequels that aren't going to happen. So why do you shoot it and put it in there?
But for me, it's frustrating because this is supposed to be the cut that we were supposed to get, and you're adding more stuff to it that didn't exist back then. So it's like no, give us all of the advertising. And that's it.
And all of the advertising leaned heavily on, at some point in the cut, like, they'll show the trailer, but then they'll tease at the very end that Joker's there, and then they're putting out pictures of Joker in a Jesus straitjacket, crown thorn kind of vibe thing, and it's like, I'm waiting for him to show up, and then he shows up in a scene that could be completely cut from the movie, have no bearing on the actual plot if it's lost, and the entire purpose of it is to establish a future nightmare world that they've already established in other scenes and other movies. It's like there was no purpose to having this whatsoever. No, it doesn't do anything for this movie, and they're not making future movies based on this. So why would you shoot this and put it in there? It's a complete waste of my time, and it pisses me off. And I don't normally get pissed off at that stuff.
No, I didn't piss me off. I agree. Like, you could have taken it out. It was still cool to see. Like, you got to admit, like, that interaction between Ben Affleck's Batman and
that was what he said. Zack Snyder said that was the main reason he did it, is because I think the fans deserve to see one scene between this version of Batman and this version, which has never happened they've been in their own movies. So,
and it was
didn't
for me, it was
they
great
have a
to
fight
see.
Scene in
no
Suicide Squad?
No,
There was
it
a whole
was
scene where
he was on top of the car, but they didn't
Yeah.
actually meet each other. Like an actual scene, they didn't actually see each other. But see, that's one of the catch-22s for me, because while I loved the scene with John Jones, the scene with Deathstroke and
Luthor.
Lex Luthor was cool, you know. And even like they talked, their dialogue was completely different than what we got in the.
It wasn't completely different. There's only
There's a few different lines.
I watched it back to back, and all they did is they cut out some of the dialogue. They kind of cut around it, and then they had one shot. And if you watch them back to back, you notice, or just watch the Whedon cut, you notice on the last line Luthor says it's cut really close to his face because they just shot it against the green screen. And he says, "Don't you think it's time we had a league of our own?"
Yeah.
Other than that, it's the same. It's they didn't go back and reshoot the whole scene or anything.
Yeah, but other than that, like even the nightmare scene was awesome. Could you have taken it out? Yeah, but then again, I was just thinking about they did have a scene with Cyborg where he kind of got a glimpse of the future of what will happen if they go along this path, which to me I feel like they're almost foreshadowing something. Like the whole thing is like going back even back to Batman versus Superman. Like, you know, Lois is the key. You know, from what I can gather, that the corpse that Superman is holding is Lois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty well established.
That's pretty well established. So I mean,
and people have pointed out that it appears that it's in Batcave.
Yeah, and from what it looks like, maybe is that maybe Batman's supposed to protect her and didn't.
Yeah.
So you know now
I
think that was one of Snyder's things in the sequels that he was pitching, was that Batman and Lois, in the absence of Superman, had an affair that they haven't revealed yet, and Lois is pregnant with Bruce's child. And that's part of what pushes Superman to go dark.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
But too far ahead. But what I wanted to say was the catch-22 for me is the fact I loved all these scenes, but I didn't necessarily need them. You know, for the confines of the film itself, you didn't necessarily need them. You know, so that was kind of the sad part for me. Was, but still, I think that nightmare scene was awesome. Like you see, go ahead.
The reason it bugs me, besides being unnecessary and being easy to cut, and the editor in me is always looking for places to cut stuff, the reason it irritates me is because it completely undermines Batman during the 3 movies. Because Batman's arc through Batman v Superman and into this is that he sees Superman as a threat. At the end of Batman v Superman, he understands that Superman isn't a threat, that he's a hero, and that the world needs him. And in the absence, you know, he needs to put together a team to make up for the fact that Superman, you know, isn't there anymore. But the team is still inadequate, so he has to bring Superman back. The problem is that this establishes that he was right in the first place, that Superman is a threat and is the villain of the story, because he turns and allows Darkseid to take over the world. And that Batman, if he had just left things the fuck alone, Superman would have died and no one would have, like, everything would be fine, because, I mean, not everything would be fine, but they wouldn't be handing over the world's greatest superpower to the enemy. Mm-hmm. He'd still be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it had they cut that out, I think we could still have that story eventually, kind of thing. But, like, I feel like it was just so unnecessary, and it actually hurts the story to have in my opinion. And I don't like that Joker. I don't care for that interpretation of the Joker, and his laugh irritates me. I want to take a bat to the side of his goddamn head every time he speaks. But just just irked me so much.
But see, that's the thing. I think
I love the John Jones stuff. Don't get me wrong. As much as it doesn't fit the rest of the movie, and it's like you're introducing this character who could be part of the story. We could cut him into the story, and he is a very integral character in this. You know, in
the comics
scheme of Justice League, like, he is the moral compass of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he not there? You're putting him in, but he's not there, and it's like, don't tease me in the middle of the story. Put it at the end.
I did want to address that. Yeah, I did want to address that. So we know the second John Jones scenes, the last scene of the film was added this year. It was shot and written and everything this year. Which it was Don't Think. So in the actual Zack Snyder cut that exists, you know, the one that he had in 2017, John Jones's only appearances, he walks out of Lois's apartment, changes. We see him in his Martian form for literally less than 5 seconds, and
that's fine. That's
it.
the perfect way
But
to do it, in my opinion.
I wondered for when they announced that John Jones was in the Snyder Cut, and my thought was, why on earth would Whedon ever cut that out? Like, that's so weird. I hope to see it so I can know why Whedon would cut. And now I know why Whedon cut it out, because it's nothing. It's like literally like, hey, I'm Martian. See ya.
Well, but then it would be
movie.
a tease that it would be a good tease that he is in the world, not helping the team, but he's playing with things in the background. And I like the idea of Martian Manhunter playing with things in the background and having his own sort of mission. So having him be human and then just tease that he's the Martian Manhunter for a little bit, because we already established him as a human character in this universe, way back in Man of Steel, but now we understand that he is Martian Manhunter. That is a fun tease. But having him Martian Manhunter the entire time, interacting with people as Martian Manhunter, and then change into the character we've already established, I don't know. To me, it getting worked up about this movie, and I really didn't want to get worked up about this movie. I was so blasé about it until like an hour ago.
Yeah,
but so I get what you're kind of going for, but to me, it's like he had no the devil's advocate. Me is like back in Man of Steel. He's established as just the colonel, then he becomes general, whatnot, whatever. To me, he had no reason really to reveal himself as such to people.
No, and I'm
not
saying
Batman's fighting Doomsday.
Well, I mean, you gotta think so if you think about it, so at that time, when Zod's there or when Doomsday show up, there was other heroes to handle the issue. Do you really need to reveal yourself if they have a handle on it?
That's why Wonder Woman showed up too. She was
but exactly, he knew about. I guarantee you, he knew about Wonder Woman.
They got it. They got a handle. Fuck it.
But that's what I'm saying. He uses himself as a last resort. And now that he knows that, go ahead.
Sorry, with Zod there, it's not. It is a world-ending situation, but yes, there's Superman to handle it, and he is helping. He's on the scene helping. Whereas with Doomsday, he's not even in the picture. With Desaad and Steppenwolf and Darkseid, he's barely in the picture at all. He shows up in one scene. Whereas this is clearly a Doomsday scenario. Doomsday as a character aside, like this is a situation where all life on Earth could stop existing. This is the time that he needs to step in, and he is God knows where. Like I think this is the point when he needs to show up.
But I feel like that's when he realized that Darkseid was coming. That's when he knew. Like I think you always, because we all agree that Martian Manhunter is an extremely intelligent being. Extremely intelligent, very methodical, very logical. If Steppenwolf, if he knows that Superman is easily able to handle him, like I had a feeling if maybe Superman never came in the picture, he probably would have showed up.
Yeah,
most likely to interfere. But since they brought back Superman in the first place, he's like he had to probably. I mean, like I said, this is all speculation. I'm just trying to. To me, this is how I would logically create the character. Like if I'm going on the wavelength of like why he did it as such, and like on a character standpoint, in a motivational standpoint, this is how I feel like it would have been or should have been done, which is where I think it was going. Is that factor that he had to methodically figure out where he wanted to come into the picture and reveal himself as such. And so like now that he knows Darkseid's coming and that's a real, actual, serious threat, it's like an all hands on deck kind of thing. So
okay. I did want to get into one area before too long, and that is, you guys know me, the score, and we have to talk about. So
man, I wish they would have kept that one, the Batman score.
Yeah,
when he's
over when Josh and I were in the
little tinges of Batman and the Superman theme that they had in the Elfman score.
I think it was before. I think it was before it came out in theaters. I think we were watching a clip that they released ahead of time. And it was the scene on where Batman meets Gordon, and where Gordon looks up and sees Batman, and Danny Elfman is scoring a Batman, including a movie with Batman in it, for the first time since 1992, so about 25 years. And he's like, fuck it, I'm using my Batman theme. We lost our damn minds. Now, at the same time, that was a fuck you to Zack Snyder. I mean, that was those themes, that using those themes instead of the Hans Zimmer's Man of Steel theme certainly is a total backtracking on what Zack Snyder was building musically. There's no question that Zack Snyder would have never had that in the movie. I don't care. I love it. And Elfman and Whedon agreed when they did that. They said, and it seems a little bit self-serving for Elfman because one of the themes is his. But they agreed. Like he's like Elfman's statement on it was like, look, my Batman theme is the Batman theme, and John's Superman theme is the Superman theme, and I included the Wonder Woman theme that Hans composed because he got there first. That's the Wonder Woman theme now, so we recognize it.
I mean, there was the 70s TV show.
Well, that wasn't a movie.
Oh my God, don't even start on that crap.
So his sort of philosophy was whoever got there first and did the movie score, that's the movie score. And to be fair,
it's not even that it's first. It's just those are the iconic scores for those characters. And don't get me wrong, the one thing I will praise Man of Steel for is that's a hell of a theme. I love that theme.
Love that theme.
But it does not hold a candle to John Williams' theme. And John Williams' theme will always be the Superman theme as far as I'm concerned.
So exactly. I like the idea that you don't have to, every time you reboot the character, you don't need a new theme. Like when they rebooted Batman, even Joel Schumacher had a new theme that Elliot Goldenthal composed. And then when Christopher Nolan took over, he had his Nolan theme composed by Zimmer and James Newton Howard. And then even Hans Zimmer was like, they're doing another version of Batman and they want me to score it, but I've already done my version of Batman and they want me to do a different version of Batman. Whereas Elfman was like, you don't need to do a different version every time you reboot it. This can be the theme for the character overall. And that was his theory on the Superman and Batman themes. So I
think he gets a pass on this for it being self-serving because he includes the John Williams score.
So Ryan, so for probably James hasn't heard, and for the people listening, so when me and Ryan saw that clip of Batman with James Gordon, like, and we heard the Batman theme song, Ryan turned into a little schoolgirl.
I did my scream. You know my scream. James has heard my scream. Yeah, I know. He's heard it, but like we've done it on here. So I did the Murphy scream, but and I did, it's like on the same. That was like the cinematic highlight of 2017 for me. So I can't pretend like I don't prefer the Elfman score. On the other hand, Elfman's score for Justice League itself, like his Justice League theme, that was what I was going into the theater waiting on because we have an Avengers theme, yeah. Dr. Banner, now might be a really good time for you to get angry. That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry. Bam, 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 bam. Right? We like, Avengers assemble. Bam. But we want that. We want like, and what Elfman gave us in that film fucking sucked. And so I was like, damn it. So I appreciate his score for including for that moment on the police station, and I appreciate him including Elfman in his own and John Williams scores, but his score for the Justice League sucked, and I wish I now knew what Tom Holkenborg had in mind when he was doing it. So they announced the Snyder Cut. That's the number one thing I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of that for about a year, and it comes out, and it's still not. It's better than Elfman, but it's still not. Bah, bah, bah. We're never gonna get our Avengers Assemble musical moment. So that's why I sent you guys my own like little edit where I just included the animated series theme in the one scene because that's the closest we're ever gonna get to a real Justice League iconic theme. And the animated series theme is an iconic theme. So now I just accept that as the Justice League theme. So.
Hey, I mean, I would totally agree, and it actually was pretty cool, what you did there when you sent that to us. So, but other than the things I had reserved about it, I don't know. Those are the things I had a problem with. But for me, the character motivations were really. I love the fact that we got to introduce. Oh God, I forgot her name already. Miss West.
Iris West.
Iris West.
That bugged the hell out of me. That was not. That was.
I
If you're gonna
enjoyed
cut
that.
the movie down from 4 hours to anything less, that's the first thing to go. That scene has no narrative purpose. It does not even establish that that is Iris West. She's just a cute girl.
And it doesn't do anything for Wally or for Barry's character either, other than to establish that he has a life outside of the Justice League. But then it never has any bearing or relevance to anything else.
In any version of this movie that's cut down, that's the first to go.
Yeah,
So-
I have to agree with Ryan on that, because that would be the first scene. 'Cause, like, don't get me wrong, I love Iris West and I love her relationship with Barry, and I think that's, you know, one of the great comic book romances and whatnot. And I would love to see more of that, but like I don't feel like it belongs in this story, and they didn't do anything to make it feel like it belonged in this story, and I don't think it's missed when it's cut out. The only thing missed from that scene is seeing Barry kind of stumbling and bumbling, trying to find a way through life. And then we get a sort of flash of him doing superheroes, because like I said, I feel like we don't get enough of, like, don't get me wrong, these superheroes, they have to do the big bad villain scenes and all that, and they have to do the big scary world breaking moments and go and fight that stuff. But I miss superheroes being everyday heroes and running out in the streets and doing things to help people. And that was one of the few things I did like about that scene, was that it's one of those few moments outside of, you know, the cameras of the liquor store.
Liquor store.
Yeah, like we don't get that very much, and that's why I liked when Joss Whedon put in that scene with that. And that's why I do kind of like this scene with Barry. But then, like, he's kind of overpowered a bit in it, to the point where, like, whenever I see
hasn't Flash
the
always
Flash
been...
kind of, he can be, but like he also has some restraint in like how much he affects the world around him. Whereas with this, like, he's literally like phasing through glass, where like he tends to be kind of hesitant about phasing through things, and like he's like completely destroying the road trying to save Iris by like gently catching her. And it's like, I don't know, to me the Flash is usually kind of like trying to not destroy everything around him, and has some sort of like restraint about that kind of thing.
That's the one thing that you notice about Zack Snyder's version of these characters, is that they don't really have... I mean, Superman got better at it, as you know, from Man of Steel. He got better at it from Man of Steel, but like these characters don't have a sense of restraint. I will agree
the
there.
only reason they had restraint was because they were on an island with no people for the entire thing of Batman v Superman. And then in this one, like, they have a fight in the park where they've already destroyed the monument, so who cares if they destroy it more?
But I mean,
and then they go
but
to
also, like,
the middle of nowhere to have the big final fight, and it's like,
yeah, it's like there's like moments in Batman Superman where you can tell he was a lot more strength in how he like took off or how he, you know, handled things. But anyway, couple things I wanted to talk about with you guys that I liked quite a bit. And then also I want to get the last one I want to get your guys' take on it, because you guys are way more of the comic book nerds than I am. Because I had the same discussion with another friend of mine who was the same. So the one thing I want to bring up is I'm glad that Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder always said this was supposed to be at its core a cyborg film. And he delivered that, and I think it was really great. I think one of the biggest changes was that his father died, you know?
Obviously,
like he sacrificed himself for that. I really liked that. But I just loved the character arc I loved the more meat on the bones of Cyborg in this one, and how he was the most integral part of this whole film. And I kind of loved at the ending scene where it wasn't just him, you know, going in the mother boxes and Superman helping him separate. Like, there was a whole thing that needed to be done. Like, Flash had to be a part of it. Like, it was more of a team effort than before. I really liked that aspect a lot more. And so, I mean, at its core, I love that. And I don't remember all the things that Ray Fisher said about Joss Whedon, but it was, you know, about like why
that's a different tale. Let's not get into that, because that's
but I mean, Joss Whedon did. Either way, that's a different tale. For some reason, which I don't understand why, Joss Whedon cut out a lot of Cyborg stuff.
This is a 4-hour movie. I mean,
you still could have. I mean, a lot of his backstory, a lot of his like the moments with his mother, and like
even,
how he died.
The scenes that were similar, like the same sort of setup, like him calling his father. You know, it's funny that you recognize monsters. Kind of thing, like there are parallel scenes in both films, so they're both trying to do the same thing, but like Snyder handled it just a little bit better than Whedon did, and it's like
he did.
There's a little more subtext to it, whereas Whedon, it's kind of like hammering on the head with that moment, and it's like as much as I like Whedon's dialogue, a lot of it was really bad in this version, and like he tends to not be subtle with those things.
And I also loved in this version with Cyborg, with Flash, with all of them, the jokes were just like all the jokes that Whedon added were just so dumb.
Yeah.
My toes hurt. Like who? I don't fucking care. Like, what? I mean, like, and just other stuff like that, and like some of the like, or some of the dumb moments, like when Flash falls on Wonder Woman's breast, and you're just like, okay, that's dumb too.
Which was already done in Age of Ultron, and which Gal Gadot refused to be a part of, so it's not actually her in that scene.
Yeah, so it's like that was taken out, and that was like, you know, some of the dumb moments like that. So either way, I'm glad that the Cyborg, that character, really got a lot of good screen time and how integral he was, because he's made from the mother boxes. He needs to be. So last thing I wanted to ask you guys, because I found it to be cool, but at the same time, I didn't quite understand why he did such, like, okay, so the black Superman suit.
Yeah.
It was cool to see. I'm glad he did it. But I remember at the ending scene where he kind of like, you know, he's walking in the sidewalks and he opens up his shirt and it's still the black suit.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that he just didn't go back to because he saw it there. It was the other suit's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Another, you know, the blue and red suit. I guess that was unclear. I guess we could have a discussion if you guys understood like why he chose the black suit over his other suit.
Because Zack Snyder thought it'd be cooler for the ending of the movie. It's
Yeah.
the suit that he wore in the comics after he was risen from the dead. So that's what it is here. But also,
that's what I'm saying. In the comics, what was the motivation? Like when he turns back from the dead, like why? Okay, sorry.
It's been 20 years since I've read that story, but my guess would be that like part of the deal with the whole him returning is that the world is in mourning, and when he was wearing that black suit, we didn't know that was the actual Superman. That was the reign of the Supermen storyline.
Yes.
So there was like Steel Superboy, Cyborg Superman,
the Eradicator.
Like there was a whole bunch of Superman, and then there was the black suit Superman who ended up they revealed that was actually Superman. But he went back to the red and blue after that. So my only thought would be that, you know, maybe this is like him kind of indicate that this is a different life for Superman now. Like
maybe
he's already gone through one life that's already ended. And like the blue suit Superman's already gone.
But in all the flash forwards, he's
he's wearing the suit again. Yeah, he's wearing.
So I mean, I think it was even.
I thought he was in the black suit and all.
No. In the nightmare scenes, he was in. Yeah, he was in the regular suit.
I think it's obvious that Snyder's intention wasn't to have him. He's going to wear black from now on, but just for this movie. And so the one part that you could have gone either way was the very end when he opens his shirt. And I just think it's still black just for the sake of.
But I think symbolically, if you're trying to show that he's returned to being Superman and not just Kal-El helping with this big bad thing, where he's actually doing the superhero thing, the red and the blue is necessary for that, to show that he's returned to that form, to return to that part of his life kind of thing. That does bring up a question that I had, though. How the hell are they going to explain Clark?
Yeah, no one.
Because bringing back Superman is fine because he's kind of godlike, and
but Clark
the gods
had
are
his
kind of
own...
involved in bringing back. But Clark is dead. Clark is dead, and now he's back, and it's like
dead.
They're not doing the whole differentiation between.
I feel like at this
Superman
point now,
and Clark Kent, but it's like you still need to explain why Clark can return to life after being dead for how much time.
Right. The only logical thing I could think of is they're kind of gonna have to do what Avengers is, like I am Superman kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clark Kent just goes, I am Superman.
They clearly don't care about there being any sort of secret identity with this, because I mean Lois knows before he's even Superman.
Right.
That Clark is a superpowered person, so there's no like tricking Lois, and like.
And I gotta say,
why would anyone else care?
Going back to like with Superman, his entrance into the big fight was way better than Joss Whedon's version. I'm sorry, but that line of I'm more of a fan of justice, that's the corniest fucking line I think of the whole movie. And like,
every now and then,
Whedon is classic Superman to have.
I'm sorry, it's so corny.
Whedon is known for his great dialogue, his historically wonderful dialogue over a brilliant 25-year career. Every now and then he has a misfire.
What happens when a toad is struck by lightning?
Yes, you beat me to it. So he actually did a draft on X-Men 21 years ago. And they only kept 2 lines that he wrote. And one is, they said, the best line in the film, and one is the worst line in the film. The worst line in the film, what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning, the same thing that happens to everything else. And then the best line in the film is, hey, it's me.
I
Prove it.
will say,
You're a
if
dick.
you hear that line from someone like Mel from Firefly saying it, where like he says it somewhere along the lines of what happens when the toad is struck by lightning, same thing as everything else, and then strikes him with lightning. Like it's all in the read, and clearly, you know, what's her name is not great
Halle
at
Berry.
comedy. Halle Berry is not
Yeah.
great at comedy. So reading a line like that is a little beyond her ability. So it does come out kind of stupid and marble mouthed, and like
But I don't know,
that
just like
entire
Henry
scene was kind of
Cavill's the whole how Henry Cavill delivered it. I don't know. Just even the line for me was just, oh man, no, that's. I get what they're trying to go for, like, oh yeah, it's Justice League, cool. But I don't know. Like I just like the idea, like when he shows up, Superman, like Steppenwolf's about to throw his axe, hits him in the shoulder. He's like, not impressed. I'm like,
And it's a
ooh,
little bit less
badass
just
right there.
Superman just saves everything in this movie. It's still more of a team effort when they kick Steppenwolf's ass. So in the theatrical,
Yeah,
I
I
will
that's
say,
true.
as
like
bad as it was, and as much as I don't enjoy the family bits, the thing I do miss from the Whedon cut, which doesn't belong in this at all, but I did enjoy, was the Barry and Superman both racing off to save people, and like because there's always this sort of question in the fandom about who is faster, Flash or Superman,
Mhm.
and Barry's pushing the truck, and then he gets out of the way, and it's fine, and then just Superman goes flying by with an entire apartment building on his back.
Yeah, that
Was a
was
great
funny.
little gag. I missed that. Again, doesn't belong in this, but it is something that I do want to acknowledge as like I enjoyed that visual.
So I mean, go ahead, Ryan.
No, that's I think in the end we can talk about what was gonna come with the potential plans here in a sec, but as for in the end, I think Josh and I agree this was a better film. Still, neither one of us would say it's a masterpiece, like a lot of the huge fanboys are shouting. But it's a better film. My caveat is just too fucking long. But
Like,
and
I'd be
then
okay.
James would say it's
I do
basically
think
the
there's a
same.
happy medium in between the two. If they had to cut it to like 2 hours 45 minutes, 3 hours 15 minutes, somewhere in between there, even just a clean 3 hours, you will get a more
I would
concise
say,
movie, but with a little more character, a little more story. But I still think there's a lot of undermining of who the characters are, what they're doing, and like certain things about the characters that I love that just aren't present in the DCEU. And I mean, maybe it's a bias, but I just can't get over that. I just can't.
So before we move on to what's next, I want to say real quick, I really feel bad for Warner Brothers. This is my rendition of what's been going on at Warner Brothers. Oh man, Disney and Marvel have such a great success with this Avengers, man. We got to get in on this. We got our own DC heroes. Let's do this. Let's make the Superman movie. Oh, fine. Superman did good. So let's make a sequel. Batman versus Superman, what everyone wants. And then we'll just go straight into Justice League and we'll be shooting that before Batman versus Superman even comes out. Batman versus Superman comes out. Oh shit, how does a Batman versus Superman movie financially disappoint? We gave them Batman. What is wrong? Well, everyone's saying that it was too dark and moody and we just didn't get the characters. Oh shit. Hey, guys, what if we actually brought in the guy who did Avengers to redo Justice League that we just shot? What, like, we'll just get the same guy. Oh my God, we got him. Perfect. This is going to be great. Justice League comes out, financially disappoints. What do these fucking people want? Then, oh man, we were already shooting Aquaman. If Batman versus Superman and Justice League didn't make any money, we're screwed on Aquaman. Aquaman makes $1 billion. Fuck these people. I don't know what they want. And then everyone's like, release the Snyder Cut. We made the fucking Whedon cut because you guys didn't like Snyder. And now the Snyder Cut's a masterpiece. Restore the Snyderverse. Oh my God.
I think it was you who said this about one of the Transformers movies. You can't polish a turd and call it a diamond.
I think you said that.
You can't slap red and blue paint on a turd and call it a Superman movie.
No, I remember about 18 years ago, James, you and I have known each other online on Star Wars, the Force.net message boards for a long time. And I remember very specifically, it was you who said, when
was
the
it me
Daredevil,
I thought that was you who said that.
No. When the Daredevil director's cut came out, you said a gold painted turd is still a turd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at any rate, let's talk about
I
really
agree,
was,
but
so.
Ryan, I do agree. Like, and I don't know, I don't know the answer for that one. Like, they try and do one thing and then it does great, and then they do the same thing, it doesn't do great. But also just it's all about telling a good story. It's all about having good dialogue, having good characters, having, good action. Like that's how Aquaman works so well, and same with Wonder Woman. I don't know. It's just it's all, and even Shazam. Like Shazam's probably one of the most lighthearted ones. It's one of the best, but it's
my
about
favorite.
It's all about the characters. It's all about the story, and it's all about having the jokes at the right. That's what we're talking about. Like all the jokes in that movie, it works. For the
that's the
maybe
problem
one
is
or
you can't just punch up a dark movie with jokes and make it a super happy superhero movie without, like, you have to change the foundations of the film to make it a lighter, more fun film. You can't just make it a dark brooding film and throw streamers in the air and expect everyone to enjoy it. Like, there needs to be substance to what you're doing, and not just.
This was a lot more lighthearted than Batman versus Superman. This didn't really need Whedon to come in and lighten it up, but
yeah, I agree.
But at any rate, I want to talk about the future, the would-be future, because they basically come out and said exactly what their plans were for the sequels. And James didn't know what I meant by this when we were talking about it privately, that it sounds a lot like both what happened in the Avengers trilogy and what happened in the Crisis on Infinite Earths in the Arrowverse. It seems like whenever we try to make a superhero big series, the big finale always ends up the same way. So, but obviously Justice League 2 would have seen Darkseid come in and destroy the world, and Lois Lane die, and Superman go crazy, just like in Injustice. That's a big popular thing, I guess. And that would have ended on a cliffhanger, and Justice League 3 would have seen Barry going back in time and trying to restore everything. And then once they restore everything, Darkseid comes back again, and there's a giant battle against Darkseid where the whole world comes in and there's a huge battle. And again, so Avengers happened where there's a movie where the Darkseid ripoff Thanos wins and it ends on a cliffhanger, and then they go back in time, and it doesn't quite work the same way, but they still do go back in time and fix everything, and then Thanos comes back and they have a giant battle where everyone shows up. And then the other thing is that Batman was going to die. We've already noted that Batman was the one who, in Zack Snyder's mind, knocked up Lois Lane. And she was going to have the baby, call it Bruce Kent, and raise the baby with Clark, and he was going to become the new Batman 20 years later. They were going to flash forward 20 years later, and because Batman's son with Lois Lane, and but that is very similar in that. And I noted the similarities with the Avengers series, and also you have these two characters who are the brooding billionaire, the dark brooding billionaire, and the colorful symbol of hope. That's very much Tony Stark and Captain America, and he's not brooding, but he's a billionaire,
right.
And the guy who's dressed more colorfully, who's sort of the American symbol of hope, and their relationship being at the heart of the series, and in the end, the billionaire dies. And that's the same thing that happened in Avengers. It would have happened here. I guess great minds think alike, or sometimes just mediocre minds think alike. But that's also what happened in the Arrowverse. You had the billionaire, which was Oliver Queen, and the brightly colored symbol of hope, the Flash, and their relationship, Oliver and Barry's relationship, was at the heart of all those crossovers and was one of the highlights of the entire experience. And then they have this big thing where the bad guy wins. And if you watch Crisis on Infinite Earths, first of all, my condolences. No one deserves to have 4 hours of their life spent with that. But the bad guy wins. They go back in time. They come back. There's a big battle. Not that big a battle, but the billionaire dies. So in all three of these versions, it kind of all happens the same way. So.
To be fair, the Arrowverse was always supposed to be, this is Batman light. We can't use Batman on TV, so we're going to do a Batman peripheral character who is a stand-in for Bat. Like they did it on Smallville, and then they did it again for the Arrowverse, and then for whatever reason went back and, why can't we do Batman on TV? So let's do Gotham. And it's like, but you just did. But no, you can't have it both ways. Either he's Batman or this one's Batman.
Arrow is one of my favorite shows for the longest time.
I could never get into it.
Oh man, the first two seasons, even the third one, the first two seasons for sure, like some of the best television I loved enjoying. Especially, superhero television. I loved Arrow. I loved how they, even though he was Batman-esque, however you want to call it. So Oliver Queen was regardless because he was a billionaire. But still, like, I don't know. I just found that I love that show. The whole character development, the whole action. Anyway, um, I didn't actually think about that until you bring it up, Ryan. That's actually pretty funny how they all three of them have the same structure, essentially a storyline. But I mean, at the same time, it works. I mean, it works.
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the same structure or just like a handful of similarities that you can kind of cherry pick to make them sound the same. Like I've heard of like some of the, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but I've heard people some cherry pick some like doozies of like similarities between two films that have nothing to do with each other, and like
Frozen and The Lion King, but then they say it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like sometimes ideas are just ideas, and like there's sometimes you're just gonna have billionaires, and some people just die, and billionaires die sometimes.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that like they're stealing ideas from each other. It's just.
And either way, and even if they did go that route, how they set it up here in this Justice League makes sense of how they had Flash go back in time to stop pretty much Darkseid from the mother boxes from synchronizing. I mean, it makes that to me, whether you hate him or you love him, Zack Snyder is pretty good at foreshadowing really well, like setting up parts of the movie, setting up dialogue or setting up action scenes where it foreshadows something more down the line. I mean, Watchmen did it pretty well too. So, and that to me, even if it's the same thing as Avengers, at its core, I'm still okay with it. It's still, that'd be a great story to see. And just sad we're not going to get it, because right now, even Zack Snyder said in an interview that Warner Bros. Has expressed no interest in continue on with his universe, which is funny because apparently
it is continuing, just not with the Justice League. It is Aquaman 2, there's Shazam 2, there's the Suicide Squad 2.
They're still talking about Man of Steel 2.
They're what now?
They're still talking about Man of Steel 2.
Well, now they want to do a Black Superman with J.J. Abrams. And I'm like, what the fuck are you people doing with J.J. Abrams?
There was also talk the other day about Man of Steel 2 and whether or not what's his name would return.
Abrams has got to go. Why are people still talking to Abrams? Fuck Abrams. God.
So I mean, but
let's
either
do a
way,
whole
like,
show on how much we hate J.J. Abrams.
But you got to acknowledge
not all of us hate J.J. Abrams there, dude.
Even though it's DCEU, they're kind of slowly going away from the tonal of Zack Snyder's DCEU, if that makes sense. Like, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, his version of this universe, they still have expressed no interest, which is funny because now apparently, like, there was lots of reports that this Snyder Cut, like, broke, just like Disney Plus did with WandaVision, like it broke their HBOMax service, like it was getting interrupted. So there's obviously a lot of interest in it. A lot of people watched it. So
I like Leslie Jones. Leslie, she tweeted herself watching it. It was pretty funny.
She tweets herself watching a lot of stuff, and it's really entertaining.
Why is the sister the one that's walking towards it first? What are you doing?
So, I mean, who knows? Like, even though they express interest now, Warner Brothers can't deny how much people liked this version and how much people watched it.
Like I said, they're throwing their arms up in the air. They don't fucking know what people want anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But they never understood in the first place, because if they were actually going to properly model the Avengers, the thing to do is to have each character have their own individual story and establish who they are before you try to bring them together as a team, because you're not going to have time in a team movie to establish and develop character. You need to have them be people first, bring them together for the big bad, and establish why they're together as a group.
Yeah.
You know what I find funny is, like, that's the formula, right? That's the formula. I was just giggling about this because, like, in my head, I'm like, Universal tried to do that with their MonsterVerse, and it just okay, Invisible Man was actually pretty great. But like the rest of them,
that wasn't part of their MonsterVerse.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But I'm saying, I was like, I find it funny. Like, let's just do their formula. Let's do it. And then they make their movies. I'm like, shit, nobody liked them.
That's Hollywood for you, man. Like William Goldman, the great screenwriter, said nobody knows anything. Nobody knows what's going to make money, what's not going to make money. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to studios making shit movies. Like The Mummy sucked. Like that's why it didn't make money.
And that's why I know people keep complaining about there not being any original films in theaters. The reason there's no original films in theaters is because studios don't want to take a chance on something that's going to bomb. They're going to rely on the sure thing, and the sure thing right now is sequels and franchises.
We can talk. That's a whole nother.
That's
show.
A whole nother. Yeah,
it is. But like, it's one of my pet peeves is people saying there's not enough original movies. There are. You're just not fucking going to see them. You're still seeing Batman
to
be
be fair,
Superman
a
again
lot
and
of the
again.
guys saying that are the guys that I went to film school with who don't go to see the Avengers and go to Josh knows what I mean.
The ones
by
I've
this,
heard
but go to
complain about are the
Florida
ones
cinema.
that line up for every goddamn James Bond film there is, and it's like,
See, that's the thing. I go to see every damn James Bond film, and I don't complain. I don't mind the fact there's a lot of sequels. I don't see what the big fuss is about.
I find it funny that
They're
everyone's like,
films too.
"Oh, we don't have any original content. We don't have any original stories." That's because you want something that's mainstream. I'm sorry, but if you want something original, I could list off 10 movies right now that I saw last year.
Name
that
the 10 movies that are nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. They're out there.
Yep.
Like,
but anyway, let's go back. Going back to Justice League.
We'll have a whole discussion on it, James.
We do that a whole nother time. But like the last question, and then I guess we'll wrap this up, Ryan. Just kind of go round robin. You can give me one yes or no answer. Are you guys happy or sad, or do you guys have your thoughts on now that, since they're probably not going to move forward with Zack Snyder's Justice, universe? What are you guys' thoughts on that? Are you guys like for me, it's sad. It kind of sucks, but I mean, if they don't make it, oh well. But I mean, then again, if they do decide, hey, we're going to make more movies in this universe, I'm down to watch them. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think I can speak for James. James is going to be apathetic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes and no, because I think there are certain things about, like, one of the things I absolutely love about BVS and then these subsequent films is that I actually really like Ben Affleck as Batman. I like the look of him. I like the character. And the
suit is awesome.
The suit is awesome. Like, just everything, just, his relationship with Alfred is really great. I love his setup. I love all of that stuff. And I just wish that we got a solo picture with him by himself, and we could get time with him where he's not part of, an ensemble, and focus a little more on him and his history and whatnot.
That should be the next campaign, because
that has less to do
version of Batman.
That has less to do with Zack Snyder and everything to do with the fact that Ben Affleck was going to do that film and just decided he couldn't crack it. He was working on the script with Jeff Johns, of all people, who now is also, like Joss Whedon, kind of one of the bad guys in this whole episode, but was working on the script with Jeff Johns and was working on it for a long time and just said, like, I couldn't make it a great movie. I couldn't. So he stepped away.
Then on the flip side of this, the point I was going to make is that it's a double-edged sword, because I also really like this take on Wonder Woman, and we got 3/4 of a really good Wonder Woman, and then a really terrible third act, and then a really kind of mediocre sequel that wasn't terrible.
Oh, did you see it finally?
I finally saw it, and it's like,
it was god awful.
It's okay, but it's not okay. Like it doesn't.
There's good moments. There's bad moments.
Like, it ruins, her place in this franchise, because suddenly she can do things that she can't in other films, and it's like, why is she not flying and turning things invisible in the other films?
She's not flying. She's falling with style. Come on,
regardless. She is
anyway,
use that power.
Buzz you really like Batman. You really like Wonder Woman in this universe, and those things. I mean, Wonder Woman. There will be a Wonder Woman 3. Even Ben Affleck,
I don't know if I want that anymore. Is the point? Like, I really don't know what I want from this anymore, because, like, I'm always down to try. Like, I gave this a shot, even though they burnt me 4 times now. I haven't watched Aquaman because I have zero interest in that. I won't have any interest in a Cyborg movie, because, as far as I'm concerned, he should be in Teen Titans and nowhere else. But that's a different argument. Flash, I don't care for their interpretation outside of the Whedon version, and they're clearly not going to go with the Whedon version anymore. So why would I go see it? So, like, none of what's come out of this part of the DCU is at all interesting. The most interesting film they've done was Shazam, which is only, like, very peripherally linked to this, because, Superman's suit shows up at the end, the guy in Superman's suit, and that's about it. And it's like, you haven't given me any incentive to be invested. Now, the new Batman film could be interesting, because they're going back to him being a young man, and I'm hoping that there will be a bit more detective in this world's greatest detective story, because they keep skipping over that part in all the films for some reason.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, I want to see these people be some classic heroes, and it's like, they're so busy saving the world that they're not being those goddamn heroes. And it's like,
Ryan, what do you think?
I mean, I'm kind of apathetic on everything now. I mean, Aquaman, I think they scored a home run with Aquaman. So we'll see Aquaman 2. I'll see Wonder Woman 3. I'll see Suicide Squad 2, which is probably going to be great because James Gunn. And
I will say John Cena, and that looks hilarious. So
yeah,
I'm kind of intrigued by that.
And The Flash, we'll see. I'm excited for Michael Keaton to come back in The Flash. So yeah, I look moving forward. We'll see. We'll take each film as it comes. So,
but like if they decided to move on, like have Zack Snyder come back to do more stuff in his universe,
I
like
would want to see
exclusively on HBO Max. That's the only way I think they could do it to separate their theatrics.
I don't think that they're going to sink that much money. Although they sunk a lot of money into this, but no, I mean, if somehow Warner Brothers decided to move forward with the Justice League 2 that followed up on these same plot lines, my only caveat would be you got to add more people to the roster over time. The storyline they went with didn't seem like it left much room for like new Justice League members to come in. I want to see Hawkman on the big screen. I want to see,
Green Lantern,
Hawkman and Green Lantern and Green Arrow and the Atom. And
that was such a tease too, to have a Green Lantern show up in this, but no other hint of Green Lantern after that. And it's like,
so right. That's my only caveat. I'd be fine with seeing more of the Snyderverse in terms of Justice League, but I would want to see, Green Arrow and Hawkman and everybody. So,
yep. Well, all right. I think that'll do it for guys. That was a good review. I think we got some good points in there. But more importantly, everybody, what did you think of the Zack Snyder version of Justice League? Leave your comments in the section below. Let us know your positives, negatives, and your score out of 10. Also, if you like what you watched, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you receive more of our various content in the future. That's all we have for today. Again, I'm Josh Williams.
I'm Ryan Murphy.
I'm James Sheridan.
And thank you for keeping it real
with ReelTime.
Good night.